The hype was massive. Saw it all in America. I've never seen it touch Australian soil.
This week in e-commerce, episode 145. I am Mal here, and it is bloody freezing. Alex.
It's freezing unless you're pumping the heater like I am. So surviving out here.
Yeah, I don't think mine has been off for like the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have to say.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah. I think I need to get it serviced at some point, which is something most people don't actually go and do.
Well, it's not a nice cost, is it?
No, but it does mean that, your house is much warmer or much cooler as a result. So it is one of those necessary things which you should definitely do. I know that in summer there's always like a run on these guys getting like all the service jobs in like November, December, and then they can never do them all.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, we are 1 week out from online retailer. We're very, very excited. Alex and I just figured out we're probably going to be on the same flight. So expect a very impromptu recording from the Qantas Lounge, I believe.
Yeah, well, let's see how we go. And shout out to all Adelaideans going over. I know a few brands, so I'm excited to have a catch up in Sydney.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it because there's going to be a lot going on, including the return of the quiz night on Wednesday, which I could say I was the inaugural winner of that. So I'm looking forward to taking home the crown again, hopefully. So we'll see.
Yeah, that was one of our more classic nights. We won the first night, the first time. Yeah, good luck. I'll be at the WhatsApp after party on the Wednesday night. Hopefully you'll be able to join us after trivia.
Yes, I will be there. God, I forgot about that one. There's so much going on. I've got drinks on Tuesday night as well. 2 things now on Wednesday. I knew I forgot one. And then Thursday, obviously the Oreos.
The WhatsApp party is free for all brands, and then there's a fee for vendors. It's nothing too crazy, so definitely recommend anybody checking it out. I believe the link is on Online Retailer's website for the general agenda as well.
Awesome. Well, it should be a great couple of days. But before that, we've got a whole episode to get through. And our first story of the day is that Prime's AU distributor collapsed. Now, when I say Prime, I talk about Logan Paul and the other dude's energy drink, Prime. So Congo Brands, which is the Australian arm of the US manufacturer Congo, has been placed into administration, leaving reportedly owing millions and with only $85,000 left in the bank. Now, I'm sure everyone remembers Prime when it launched, with the queues out the door, the empty shelves, people buying them on eBay for like $10,000 for a bottle of Prime. Where has all the hype gone?
Well, and even then, I knew about it, but I don't say I'd ever bought it, to be honest. I don't know about you.
Never.
Yeah, it's a hype thing, to your point, right?
Yeah, I think with anything where it is built on hype, like the product itself wasn't very good and was in a lot of trouble for the fact that it had like a ridiculous amount of caffeine and sugar in it, they were never able to translate that into a sustainable brand. And that's always going to be the case when you have these influencer-led hype brands. It's really hard to make them successful beyond that initial hype, I think.
Yeah, it makes me think of Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy, the podcast. She has a drink, Unwell, I think it's called, and the hype was massive. Saw it all in America. I've never seen it touch Australian soil. But it's one of those ones where it's an influencer led. We're all hyped, and then it's about not only buying it once, but that repeat purchase.
And there are influencer brands which can work, but then they're fundamentally really great products to start off with. Whether you look at something like Go-To Skincare, for instance, where it is something where it is a good product, which just happens to be founded by an influencer/celebrity. Whereas in this case, it was all about the hype. And as soon as Logan Paul or Jake Paul, whichever one it is, and KSI stopped promoting it, the hype just went out of it, and the brand is now where it is now.
Where would you have found Prime?
It was available at Coles, Woolies, supermarkets. It was everywhere. I think that was also part of the problem, where it was a scarce brand and suddenly it became everywhere and it was omnipresent.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, our second quickie for the day is that the Stax fallout continues to get worse and worse. I believe they're aiming for a sale by this Friday is when they're expecting that to be closed. But in the meantime, though, there has been a lot of news around customers who placed an order during their pre-sale event, which they did on June 23rd and 24th, where over those 2 days of the sale, if you placed an order in any of those 2 days, you weren't actually paying for product which was there. You were pre-ordering product which hadn't even been made yet. And this has all since come out, and all those customers have been told that they're not going to see anything. They're not going to get the product. The factory isn't going to make that product, and there's going to be no refunds either.
It's a brutal story, but I don't think it's uncommon, right? When it gets to this stage in liquidation, administration, wherever they're
Receivership now. So, well, I think it was liquidation now.
Yeah, sorry for getting that wrong. It was another retailer recently where shoppers had 2 months to redeem gift vouchers and they'd get 50% of the gift vouchers worth or something like that.
Barbecues galore are doing that.
Yeah. So you still get 50%, but I was still, when I first heard that, I thought that's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, the barbecues galore one, that actually said that if you need to spend double the amount of the voucher, so if you've got $100 voucher, you need to spend $200, and then you can redeem the $100, which I guess in that case makes sense in a way, but at least you get something back. But in this case, you don't get anything back. And what made it worse was that the two founders, Don and Matilda from Stax, actually blamed the banks and said, you know what, it's not our problem anymore. We're really sorry, but you need to speak to the bank and have that charge back.
Yeah.
Which is just such a terrible position to put all your customers in as well. So I remember last time when we spoke about it, I was talking about the fact that some of that trust could be earned back, but even if someone buys this company, you've really essentially burned that whole relationship, because your last experience with Stax, if you bought over that sale, would have been, well, you've just taken my money and I'm not getting anything back. So now there's no sense of reciprocity because the brand now owes you.
Yeah, and it kind of throws you back to the old days, where you'd go to a cafe and they'd have on the wall under new ownership. And if you had a bad experience, you go, oh, maybe their coffee will be better this time. It doesn't work the same way. Illegal.
No, very, very different. Given that, for the most part, founders are generally kind of invisible to it. Like, you see your interaction is with the product and with the website, the emails, the ads, and everything else. Look, I'll be interested to see. I'm sure next week we'll be reporting on what actually happens with this, whether there are any buyers for that. But like we talked about, I don't think that the valuation will be particularly high. So we'll see what actually happens with this.
Yeah, it's a quick moving story.
Okay, and our last quickie for the day is the Telstra outage, which earlier last week, I should say, affected the entire Telstra network, where there was a full nationwide disruptage and outage on their network, disrupted 000 calls, trains, and for retailers, payment systems. So if you were using a Telstra SIM over that period, you effectively weren't able to take any payment in your store.
There are so many consequences and awful ones too, but shout out to, the retail workers that's stressed behind the till. They've got a line of shoppers and everyone's tapping their foot, right? Telstra, I don't understand how something like this happens, if I'm honest.
It was a software defect as well. It wasn't something which was malicious. It was just someone failed to update the software, from what I understand. But it does kind of show how reliant we are on these single systems as well, where if one thing breaks, your whole business could eventually could fall over for that period. And luckily, this was only a 4-hour outage, but that's still half the trading day.
And 4 hours on traditional Boxing Day, for example, or something like that, right? That's painful.
Yeah.
No one's really equipped for that. Good call out on reliance on one vendor or platform or partner or whatever. I think that's good.
I got to say, bring back the clicky clacking machine.
No, I just remember feeling so stressed where there would be a technical glitch and you'd have to pull out the notebook or whatever in the old system, and it just was disaster every time.
Yeah, I've got my finger caught in that machine many, many times over the years. I was glad to see it out, but there's still sometimes where I think you need to have that backup there, or at least maybe having another network which you can switch to over that period. Maybe something you look at as well.
That feels like Telstra's job, to be honest. Last kind of note on this one is we obviously saw what happened to Optus.
Yep.
A year ago-ish. So this all just comes to that game of trust, I think. We'll see how this rolls out.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I should also say, well done to Telstra in terms of their crisis communications, because when you talk about Optus, they did a bloody awful job at crisis communications. It took days for them to front the media, to really own the issue, whereas Telstra's CEO flew back from holiday on the day, which, you could argue that's what she should do anyway. That's absolutely fair. But she came back, she fronted the media, and she owned the issue. So I think from a crisis comms point of view, the PR in me says you actually did a pretty good job with this, rather than letting it fester for too long.
Yes, and they had the beauty of kind of learning from Optus's past too.
100%. Okay, our first deep dive for the day is a really interesting one. And one of the few positive stories this week, unfortunately, is that retail spending is up, but it's interesting where it's going up with. And from an Inside Retail report, it actually shows that over 65s retirees are the ones who are spending more. Their spending is actually up 14% year on year, which is fairly significant given that how flat the entire retail market has actually been. So when you figure that retail has been relatively flat, maybe 2 or 3% over the last 12 months, the fact that it's even up is all because of this market, this retiree market, who have paid off their homes, who are asset rich and can afford to continue to spend.
Hmm. My mind goes to we talked about a report a couple months ago now where the female market didn't feel represented. And that was, from memory, 25 to, let's say, 45, right? Imagine the opportunities in this in terms of that targeting. 14% year on year growth is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in this market. And you think about most of the brands who we would be exposed to as well. You look at, if we go to online retailer next week, who's going to be talking up on stage, even the Oreos, most of the brands who are going to win, they're going to be generally targeting a younger market, that 25 to 40-year-old. But they're the ones who are actually contracting at the moment. And even a couple of years ago, I think the retailer of the year was the Birdcage, which is targeting more mature women. So it shows that that market there does feel to be a bit underserved as well. So it's worth thinking about for retailers. Is this a market which is potentially untapped goldmine for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of brands growing up with their audience, particularly brands that grow fast. So yeah, thinking about that target for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, especially over the next couple of years, that younger market, who most people are reflexively targeting, appears that it's not going to be growing too much. So you do need to look at where that next stage of growth is coming from. And look, I'm not saying by any means change your entire strategy and pivot towards being a grey brand, but definitely be looking at, well, what could we be doing to broaden our appeal to that market without sacrificing our core customer as well. And in some cases, it's not going to make sense.
Yeah, my mind goes to beyond fashion as well as outdoor stores and things like that, catering to that there's a lot of
Mm.
opportunities in different verticals, and you can start to think about those types of shoppers.
Yep, one of my clients sells GPS trackers, and the largest segment they're selling GPS trackers to are grey nomads,
Yeah,
people who are retiring, buying a caravan,
yeah,
and attaching GPS trackers to it to make sure that their family can follow them, they know where it is, it doesn't get lost, that sort of thing.
yeah. And they're buying high quality products.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so definitely one to watch out for. All right, our second deep dive is Adairs. So the legacy Australian the furniture homewares brand is prepping their investors for a $40 million loss this last financial year. And it's really interesting because while their EBIT actually grew 15%, the loss is actually because of a write down on their Focus on Furniture brand, which they acquired not too long ago.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one a fair bit. We've been talking about Temu, obviously, but now Kmart Home and that lower market for furniture, which is, if I'm wrong or not, apologies, but that's kind of where my mind goes to for focus on, right? So serving that market, and it's just getting more competitive.
Yeah, it is. I think we've talked about this time and time again that people are looking to trade down or to kind of stay in that really premium space if you have the cash for that. But when you sit in that middle, it's really, really hard. And I think if you look at where Focus on Furniture, what their positioning has been, it's been a very mid positioning. They're not trying to market themselves as premium, and they're certainly not cheap either. Whereas you've got, like you said, you've got Kmart with their K Home, you've got Temple and Webster with all their options, Fantastic Furniture, Amart, who are all doing reasonably well because they are catering to that end of the market.
Yeah. I think you covered this really well in the end of year wrap up last year when we're releasing that squeeze in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's something which I've been talking about for a couple of years now, and we're really seeing it come into effect now. But the interesting thing, though, is that from an M&A perspective, a lot of brands are still looking for M&A activity. Talking with some different people in the industry, there are brands who are looking to expand, and they're looking to expand through M&A. And on the surface, this one actually looked like it made a lot of sense between Adairs acquiring a furniture brand. But I think when you look at where the market was heading, and I don't know when exactly this transaction happened, but it seemed like it was the right asset, but at the wrong time.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think of it's one of those stories where if you go to, let's say, a Myland Homemakers Centre where they've got your Snooze, your 40 Winks, your Adairs, your Pillow Talk all lined up, Adairs Group is competing against themselves.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think it's definitely something which when you're thinking about acquiring and looking to expand, it's like, where does it actually make sense? But also looking at where the market is headed as well, to see if this is actually going to make a lot of sense for you. Because we've seen previously with Louis Vuitton as well, with them selling off a lot of their brands, like Marc Jacobs. This is something where more people are looking to lean down rather than to acquire. But if they acquire, it needs to make strategic sense for you. Okay, and our final deep dive for the day is City Chic and Uniqlo, two brands I never thought I'd talk about in the same breath, but both of them who are going in opposite directions when it comes to their global expansion. Now, City Chic, we've talked about previously before, they're the plus size fashion group, started in Australia, looking to expand to the US, but in that time, they've since seen their US sales continue to plummet, but being able to buoy Australia and seeing Australian growth continue to increase as well. On the flip side, though, is that you have Uniqlo, which is about to report their 5th full consecutive year of record profits, which is just insane. And a lot of that for them has been driven by that international growth. So what I think about is that you've got these two contrasting brands where you've got one which is so aggressively focused on growth and being able to do extremely well in the US, in China, in lots of different markets, in Australia as well. Whereas you've got the other one, City Chic, which has had to contract and deliberately pull back from the US market because they can't make it work.
Yeah, this story of their performance in the US has been one that's been consistent for, I don't know, I want to say at least 12 months we've been talking about this, right? So it's definitely interesting, particularly in contrast to Uniqlo. I would think I'm a stan of Uniqlo at this point. I absolutely love the brand. So none of their growth surprises me. And look, to be fair, very different businesses when you think about who they're targeting. They do have the beauty of being able to have a really, really broad target market when it comes to Uniqlo products.
Yeah, I think there's also a level of trust as well, which they've built up, where the quality of their products is it's never going to be the greatest, but for what you pay for, it's extremely good value for money. And I think that's, again, that middle being squeezed, where City Chic, they're not the cheapest, they're not the most expensive. They do cater to that plus size market primarily. But in the US, there's so many other brands in that space. So how do they differentiate? And in their case in particular, they also struggled with the unit economics of it as well, where they've had issues with all the changing tariffs and regulations, which has affected their profitability as well. Having to stand up, different fulfillment centers amongst many other things in Australia, in the US. They just didn't have the same infrastructure and the same capital behind them, which a Uniqlo has been able to do.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think that's a fair call out with the sizing that City Chic covers and that width when it comes to size range. It's amazing, but it's also really hard work when it comes to, like you said, all of those units and economics.
Yeah, you can't go from 12 to 26 plus. And I have this conversation with a lot of retailers about what should their sizing be. And ultimately, when you're looking at doing 3PL, every additional variant is an additional cost to you as well, which also means you need to hold that stock. It just adds so much added complexity to how you need to operate as a business to be able to make sure that you've got the right inventory on hand.
Yeah, and to kind of full circle this now, I'm pretty sure one of the value adds of Stax was that they had that really strong size curve availability too.
Yeah. You could be right. I can't actually remember what Stax's proposition was, but yeah. Okay, that is all we have time for this week on This Week in E-commerce. Alex, where should we be looking out for you? Well, besides online retailer, what else is coming up?
Well, I need to shout out online retailer on the Wednesday. I will be on the next gen stage. So pretty last minute. I'm pretty excited. Did this last year. It's kind of a how-to structure, how to nail product discovery is what I covered last year. This year to be decided, but come find out next Wednesday. What about you, Mal?
So I will be on stage at the Nora podcast stage for my 5th year in a row, I believe, hosting the stage. So super excited. I've got a full list of interviews lined up, including Vic from Muscle Republic, who is back for another interview, Kelly from Clipster, Justin from Chief Nutrition, and many, many more. So I'm super excited for this. It's always my favorite 2 days to just be able to really deep dive into some great retailers and find out more about what makes them tick and some of the challenges they've faced. So if you're not at the next gen stage and you are looking to hear some retailer stories, head on over to the Nora podcast stage. Say good day to Alex and I. We will both be around both days, but then also at the various parties which are on as well. So we're looking forward to catching up with a few of you. All right, that's all we've got time for. In the meantime, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep selling, and we'll see you back next week.
We'll see you then.